Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be working on the 100 Heads Challenge. I said I was going to be working on this once a month, but I am 2 weeks overdue, so let's get to it. So far, we have done charcoal with alcohol marker as the backgrounds, alcohol marker with a little bit of colored pencil, oil pastels, paint markers, and today we are going back to the basics and doing plain old graphite pencils. Now the first thing that we have to do, as always, is to sketch everything out and just kind of use this as a time to plan out where each head is going to go. And I am actually doing this in a different way than I usually do. Usually I sketch out the whole face first, like eyes, nose, all the details. But this time I decided just to do the outlines because my plan for graphite is to really lean heavily on the blending tool to do my sketches for me. I have a little bit of a plan this time. Now I spent very little time doing the outline, and I know that I'm gonna have to fix things along the way as I actually sketch them, and that's a blessing and a curse. And you'll understand what I mean as we go along because it becomes very obvious. But for now, I finished the 5 heads, and then I looked back at the first one and she was way too tiny, so I had to make her bigger just to match everybody else. Okay, so I have to admit, I was really nervous to start this one today, and I think the reason why is because it's black and white, and I have been doing really, really colorful stuff lately, and so going back to black and white just made me feel like every little mistake that I did was gonna be so obvious. So I was really nervous to expose my skill or lack thereof. Now, I'm really not taking this as seriously as it seems like I am. This is all for fun. Like, nobody's forcing me to do this. It's my own free will. But it's just a little bit scary, you know, because I feel like I've been making a lot of progress with portraits, and today we'll see if maybe that's not true. But let's forget about that and move on to the actual drawing that I'm doing in the video. So with graphite, since I can't lean on colors, I'm gonna have to really get my values good and, you know, go as dark as I need to go for the darks and go as light as I need to go for the lights. Also, her right eye, our left eye, is way too high, and I do fix that, so don't worry about that. Anyway, I decided that instead of going all in with details first, I was going to only look at values. That's actually why I'm holding my pencil like this, so that I have to use the side of the pencil and not the tip of the pencil, because if you use the tip, I get very bogged down into feeling like I have to go straight into details. But when I hold my pencil off to the side, I can't really do details with this blunt of an edge, you know? But along the way, I was actually finding that I kind of liked how it looked to have like the blurriness incorporated with the sketch. So I found myself using the side of the pencil most of the time and only relying on the detailed tip side only when I absolutely needed to, with like the very small features like the eyes, the nose, and the mouth sometimes. I mean, there are probably going to be other times that I use it, but for the most part, it's going to be the very small features. So I was really worried when I started this spread about not doing it justice, not being good enough to work with graphite in a way that was going to be really impactful. But I gotta tell you, I started having so much fun, and I got really lucky that she was the first one on this spread. I didn't actually plan out which person was going to go where on this spread. Usually I do, and that's because usually I'm using my square sketchbook, but I'm not using my square one today. I'm using my long one. So I figured since I don't have to squish all my heads together, they can all be in a row, and I don't need to really worry about which head is where and looking in which direction. Anyway, so all that to say, I was looking on Pinterest for faces, and the first one that I found was her, and I put her down first. Like, that's the only reason why she's first, is because I found her first. Anyway, so I got lucky that she was first because she was the easiest one for me, and I got really excited about her hair. This is my favorite type of hair to draw. I just really love it when ladies have big hair. I love it so much. But also the reason why it was a little bit easier for me than the other ones is because the shadows were not very intense on her. And normally that's something that I look for, is a really intense shadow. But for this one, I actually found it much easier that she didn't have intense shadows, which was kind of interesting. It's actually kind of fun. I have an idea and I don't know how it's gonna go, but I am using all colored pictures today. I didn't transfer them to be black and white. So I was doing all of this just kind of guessing the value of everything from color to black and white. And I really want to tell you my plan, but it's a little bit confusing. So I hope it makes sense. I had my husband transfer or like change the pictures to be black and white and not color pictures. And as I'm doing this voiceover, I am going to do a side-by-side. I'm going to put the black and white picture next to the finished product, and I'm going to experience it along with you to see how well I did. Okay, this is a little bit off topic, but we'll get back to it in a second. I want to show you what fixative can do for the pages before it. Usually if you don't use fixative and then you push really hard onto the next page, the page before it will end up really messed up. Like you know what I'm talking about. So I've been using fixative on this sketchbook specifically because these ones always end up being my favorite spreads. And at the very end of the video, I'm gonna spray fixative on this spreads and I'm gonna show you how I do it. So if you're interested, it's at the end. Okay, so I'm almost done with this drawing, so I'm ready to pop up a side-by-side now. Okay, the graphite picture that I took is a lot shinier because graphite has a shine to it, right? So it's hard to say, like in person, it looks a lot darker than the picture is. But as far as, like, I noticed that the skin tone in the reference is much more monotone than what I drew. I made her much more shiny than she should have been. Also, her lips I made darker, and I made under her eyes much darker than they should have been too. There are also some differences that I missed with, like, her earring. But altogether, I think my biggest mistake was that I exaggerated the shadows on her face too much. Well, was this interesting? You'll have to let me know if this was something that you know. But let's move on to the next one. Okay, so this is Ron Weasley, and I have struggled in the past with drawing kids and putting kids' faces on the internet, and I did a lot of research and soul searching, I guess, to know if I felt comfortable putting a kid's face on the internet. And since this is such a widely popular character, and he is currently an adult, I feel a little bit more comfortable doing this with you guys. So yeah, this is Ron Weasley, and I started out doing kind of the same method that I did for the first girl, where I did a light layer of a mid-tone so that I could go darker where I needed and lighter where I needed to, also with an eraser. And this is the same thing that I did with the girl first, right? But I was actually finding that doing it this way, I felt so much more free and not so constricted by the details of where everything should go. So while it was a benefit to me to just get all the tones down first and slowly start working in the details, it was also a struggle because I didn't have the details down. So every one of these, I had to rearrange kind of where the positioning of usually the eyes. I get the eyes wrong every time, but with graphite, it's a lot easier to fix your mistakes because it's really easy to erase and start over. I was having so much fun drawing Ron Weasley. I really like to draw kids. I think it's just because my kids are kind of around this age, a little bit younger, but it just brings me so much joy because my kids bring me so much joy too. So yeah, this one was so much fun, and I really like how it turns out. I think because my kids are younger, I naturally just made his face look a little bit younger than it should have been. But yeah, I really, really like how this one turned out. And I think that his mouth was the biggest thing that I needed to get correct to make it look like him. It was also a little bit interesting because once I did get his mouth down and in a way that I liked, it still didn't look like him until I got his eyebrow in. Even though you can only see like the very end of it under his bangs, that little touch of an eyebrow really, really assisted his facial expression to, be as expressive as Ron Weasley was. But I'm almost done with this, so let's do another side-by-side comparison, and here we go. Okay, wow. I made him a lot more textured in the skin than he should have been. I didn't make his hair dark enough, and his skin should have been dark enough. Also, yeah, he looks a lot younger. I made him a lot younger. But I decided that I'm going to keep those side-by-side comparisons pretty short and concise, just in case it is a fail, so it's not like super boring to watch. So I'm going to jump right into the next one. I have seen this lady on my Pinterest every single time that I have looked for references, and I always want to draw her, but I don't know. I just never picked her because I always felt really nervous to do it because there was just so much going on with her face that I didn't feel like I could do it right. But I decided, okay, if color isn't an aspect, black and white is perfect because her shadows are so dark, and usually that is something that I pick with reference photos, and the first two didn't have really intense shadows, so let's do intense shadows on this one. Yeah, I struggled a lot with this one. This was the hardest one. I feel like the third portrait is always like the cursed one because I'm always so happy with how the first two come out. And then the third one, there's just a lot of pressure to make this one just as good. And I always tend to challenge myself a lot more with the third one than the first two. So this one was challenging because she was an older lady, and with that comes wrinkles on the face. And personally, I think that it looks like too much if you add every single wrinkle on the face. So I wanted to make sure to get like the most defining things down on her face, but leave out the ones that didn't need to be added, that would end up being too much and would kind of detract from the picture, With her, as I kept drawing, she started to look more masculine, and that was really something that I struggled with this one. I for some reason, I felt so much for her. I think she reminded me a lot of my grandma, the way that her eye, the closest eye to us looks a lot like my grandma's. And I think that I just had like some kind of an affinity for her that I really wanted to do right by her. But as I drew her, I noticed that there was a moment where she was looking very inaccurate. So as I tried to fix the inaccuracies, she turned more masculine, and that really started to break my heart. I really wanted to keep her femininity because that's important to me. But this one, yeah, I struggled a lot. And I think that this one is probably the one that's the least accurate to the reference, but I couldn't at the time figure out what was wrong. So I decided to just kind of leave the face how it was, add some darker shadows, as dark as they needed to go. We'll see how that works. And then really lean into making her hair as flowy as it needed to be, and getting her lips the way that they needed to be. And then hopefully that will balance out her femininity a little bit. I had a hard time doing the angles of the camera for this one so that the shininess of the graphite wasn't so shiny, because my desk is right next to a window, and that's prime shine. So I ended up having to kind of change the way that I do angles for my camera. Usually I like to get a lot more angled and like down low shots, but I couldn't really do that with this because otherwise it would just be complete shine. And it still does end up a lot more shiny than it looks in person. In person, it looks a lot darker. So I wanted to do the side-by-sides as accurate as possible. So that's why the side-by-sides might look a little bit darker than it looks in the video. Speaking of, it is about that time. So let's do a side-by-side now. Oh, wow. I did so poorly on the face. That's why she looked more masculine. How strange. I got her eye right. Okay, sorry. Let's get back to tone. So I'm noticing a lot of differences. I could have spent a lot more time on this. Oh my goodness. Her cheeks could have been darker, and pretty much the whole right side of her face could have been darker. And I should have lightened up the very right side of her face. Like by her ear, her darkest spot is kind of on the line right by her eye. But I went darkest right next to her ear. So that was interesting. I didn't expect that I went that wrong. I guess I was so focused on the femininity part that I totally just lost the tonal aspect of it. What a bummer. But live and learn, I guess. So let's move on to this next one. So when I pick references, you know that I try to have a lot of variety, both in skin tone and in age. And so I decided this time to do 2 different older people. And because that's something that I struggle with, as we've already established in the last one. So yeah, I picked a second older one just to practice older people. I enjoyed doing this one so much, and I think that the reason why this one wasn't so intense for me was because the last one was so intense. I kind of knew that I needed to take this one a lot slower and really take my time with the things that I was struggling with. So whenever I got to a point where I was having a hard time, I totally took a step back, went to a different area, and then I would revisit the things that I was having trouble with instead of trying to force myself to get it right then. I've been so interested lately in just branching out and trying a lot of different mediums. And when I do that, I'll try a type of medium, but like the cheapest kind, just to kind of get my foot in the door to see if it's something that I want to invest in. And graphite pencils was something that I didn't know if it would actually make that big of a difference to go with like a more professional tier drawing pencil rather than like a cheap Amazon kind. And I had been using the cheap Amazon kind and it was doing the job well. Like I didn't have any complaints, but I wanted to see, like my curiosity was piquing if there would be that big of a jump between basic intro to drawing kit kind of stuff versus a dedicated drawing pencil, you know? But all that to say, this is the Staedtler Mars Lumograph pencil set. And I ended up getting the 12 pack instead of the 6 pack. And I'll tell you that after today, I probably should have gotten the 6 pack because there are some that I don't use and I don't imagine that I'm going to get that professional. I'm not going to go professional with these, right? So I don't need the 12, but it's still really fun to use and try to figure it out. Anyway, the whole reason why I started saying that was because the biggest difference that I found between these pencils and my Amazon brand that I was using before was these pencils don't break. Like I had 0 problems sharpening them and they were just a complete pleasure to use. Now, as far as quality of the actual graphite that gets put on the paper, this might actually kind of bother you because I don't know that I can really tell the difference. And that's just because I don't use graphite that much to be able to really be able to tell the difference on 5 portraits, you know? These are probably better. It's just that I'm a noob, I guess. So when you guys were kids, would you, if your eraser got dirty, would you rub it on the ground to try to clean it up? That's what I'm doing here. It helps a little, but it gets like the towel stuff on it, so you have to pick off the fibers. I know a lot of people cut the eraser, but I just don't really like cutting But back to the picture real quick. So yeah, this one was a lot more fun than the last one. And I think also the reason why the last one was so bad was because I did a really bad job doing the initial sketch for her. So yeah, when you do that bad of a job with the initial sketch, it's really hard to kind of come back from that. So I think that was my main problem with her. Sorry, I keep thinking about how bad that was. But yeah, this one was a lot easier and a lot better. And the thing that I struggled the most with for him was his eyes and getting the intensity the right amount on his eyes. I mean, everything else looks really cool on him and I like how he looks, but yeah, the eyes needed to be the focal point. Okay, so I'm almost done with him and it's almost time for a side-by-side. Oh boy, I am so nervous after that last one. Okay, let's do it. Oh man, I lost all hope in myself after that last one. Okay, so this one is a lot better, more accurate face-wise, but as far as tone, you can tell that I spent more time on this and I went darker on the shadows than I needed to go. I think that I had the same problem as I did with the first girl where I made him a lot more shiny, like with the first girl. So I exaggerated the highlights and went too dark with the shadows. But I guess of any problem that I could have had, I feel like that's probably best case. Geez, I am so relieved that it wasn't so bad. I lost all hope in myself after that third one. Okay, so let's forget about everything else and let's move on to this last and final one. This one was fun, but also stressful. I don't really know exactly what the problem was, but I had a lot of issues with his eyes. At first I draw them too wide, and at one point I erase all of his face and start over, and I'm glad that I did that instead of just trying to keep fixing it, you know? But I think my problem with this one, again, was the same problem that I had with the third one, where the shadows were so intense, I got lost in it. So I really tried to take it slower with this one and focus on the shadows and making sure that I got everything accurate. Yeah, the way that he turns out is a lot different. It looks like a whole different style that I did with this one, and I didn't mean to do that. He turns out looking a little bit more cartoony than the other four, which is strange. But I guess we'll talk more about that at the very end. But for him, the way that his eyes look right now kind of was making me laugh because it looks a lot like that. Is it Snapchat or something? Whatever the eyes, where the eyes come down and you blink and you try to get your eyes at the right spot. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, those videos are always really funny. But I think my real problem with this one right now was that I kept going back and forth between drawing by value and then drawing by detail. And I think that by switching back and forth between the two methods, I kept kind of losing my place and made it so that I kept overlooking certain aspects, and yeah, it made it really tricky to know kind of where I was headed. It was like every time that I switched, I forgot what I was doing, and then every time that I went back to revisit, I couldn't remember where I left off, you know? So, I mean, he turns out looking really good, and I really like how it turns out. I think my only complaint is that I made it harder for myself because I didn't really have a system, and by the fifth head, you would kind of expect that I had a system, but nope. I guess I sure like to keep myself guessing. But yeah, it's always by the fifth head that I start to loosen up, and maybe too much because I stop caring so much about following any kind of structure, and I end up just freestyling, which kind of gets me into more trouble and also gets me really frustrated, which is kind of funny because usually I like to problem solve. I don't know what the deal is today with this one. I was actually having a lot of fun. It's mainly in like the voiceover. I don't know. I'm feeling a lot more serious right now. Yeah, but I haven't talked at all about the blending tool that I'm using. It's just a regular old blending stump. I think that we all kind of know what that is. But the way that I'm using it in the past, I've always been really like infatuated with the blending aspect of it, and I just end up blending everything. But I made it a point this time on this spread to actually lean into the texture of graphite itself and not have everything be so blended out. So the only real reason why I was using the blending stump at all was to just kind of smooth out the texture and get like a uniform area of color down. And then once I had that down, I made sure to add texture on top of it so that the blending wasn't like the top layer. And I'm really glad that I did that because it makes it look a lot more finished in the end, and it makes it so that the darks are dark enough, because if you put really dark stuff down and then you blend it out, it kind of takes it away a little bit, at least in my experience. So yeah, if you want dark areas, the pencil has to be the top layer without any blending. Okay, so I'm just about done, and then we're gonna do a side-by-side comparison right now. Okay, so I went darker than I needed to go, and I made his hair a lot bigger, but this isn't about the hair, this is about the tone. I got the hair tone pretty good, which is easy because it's just the darkest thing. The face, I definitely went too dark. Well, maybe only on the left side. The right side I actually got pretty good for the tones. Wow. That might be my best shadow tone. The light side definitely needed to be lighter. I shouldn't have probably added any shadows to the left side, but all in all, not my best, but not my worst. So that's good. After I was done with the whole spread, I looked at this girl and her nose was too far to the left, so I kind of tried to move it just a little bit to the right, and that is included in the side-by-side that I did of her, not that that really matters. Once I finish that, then all 5 of these are done, and now we just have to number them. So this is how the whole spread turned out, and let's see how the previous page, nothing. Okay, I love using fixative, and I'm gonna take you along in a second to spray fixative on this one, so I'll show you how to do that. But if you're not interested in that, I'm gonna leave you here. Thank you so much for coming along. This one was different. I will see you in the next one. Toodaloo. Okay, first of all, always do fixative outside. This is the fixative that I really like using. I find that it doesn't smell very bad, and I really like the results that it gives. I like that it's matte. So first thing that you want to do is always spray your fixative into nothingness so that just in case there's globs on the nozzle, it's not going to end up really globby on your page. And then you hold it about a foot away and just do a light pass first. We're going to end up doing 3 layers on this, and it dries so fast. Usually only have to wait about 1 minute before I do my second layer, but once you have the first layer down, it's like the fixative acts as like a protective barrier for everything underneath, so you can be a little tiny bit more generous with your second pass. Still keep it really thin though, don't totally go crazy. And then I'll take my finger on the heaviest area and go over again and see if any graphite is coming up. I'll do it in several areas. So far nothing, but I'm gonna check all the heaviest areas just to make sure that maybe a little bit. Let me try one more. Okay, that one definitely picked something up. So now I know where I need to pass over one more time. It's usually the edges that I miss, so I'm gonna go in just to the edges and add one more pass. But then once you're done, you want to hold your can upside down and spray for a couple seconds to try to remove any excess fixative from your nozzle. Otherwise, it'll gunk up your nozzle and pretty much make it unusable. But this is how this fixative looks. I love the finish that it gives. I would show you on the graphite one, but since the graphite's really shiny, it's kind of hard to see exactly what the fixative does. And I've been using it for all my pages so far and no problems. Okay, bye.